Joaquin left me sick and feverish in the suburbs, just to accompany his first love to the beach. He spent 6 years teaching me to be independent, yet he told his first love that she deserved to be cherished by the world. So I no longer needed him. Elise shouted excitedly on the phone, "Joaquin, can you hear the sound of the waves?" Joaquin's face changed dramatically and he slammed on the brakes. "Elise. Where are you?" Elise chuckled softly. "I was in a terrible mood. But being by the sea has given me a sense of peace I haven't felt in a long time." "Joaquin, the sea looks so dark at night. It's a little scary, but with my feet buried in the sand I feel grounded. The water is so cold. Though I'm starting to feel chilly. How about I take you for some hot pot? That place you said had the best tripe." Joaquin's voice was steady, but his hand holding the phone was trembling. Finally he found Elise's location marked by a flashing red on the map. He was about to turn the car around when I stopped him by grabbing his hand. It was only then that Joaquin seemed to remember I was still in the car. Because I was blocking him, his face darkened, and his eyes instinctively flashed with annoyance. I smiled wryly and muted the call. "Drop me off first. I still need to go to the hospital. I had a fever of 38.9 degrees. We had left the party early just so he could take me to the hospital. But one phone call from Elise had made Joaquin forget I even existed." Joaquin hesitated. "Jessica, Elise. She." I knew what Joaquin wanted to say. It was nothing more than Elise's situation being more urgent. She needed him more than I did. And I was just sick, not a child. Surely I could handle it myself. Before he could finish, I nodded understandingly. "I get it. Go to her. I'll go to the hospital myself." With that I got out of the car. I watched the car sit still for 5 seconds before it turned around and sped off. Elise was Joaquin's first love. Back in college he ate a whole box of mangoes even though he was allergic, just to win her over. But in the end Elise left him for a better option. This devastated Joaquin, plunging him into a deep self-loathing. I didn't save him. By the time I met him, he had already climbed out of the pit of his heartbreak. He was confident, mature and composed when I met him. He had become my mentor in life. He made me a better version of myself. But not in the way I would have liked. Elise reappeared 2 years ago. That better option she left him for had cheated on her and abused her. Elise fell into a deep depression. Joaquin was her therapist. He said he had moved on long ago, that Elise was just a patient to him now. At first that was true. Until Elise stopped paying for sessions. Until that night. When Joaquin gazed at her and said, "You deserve to be cherished by the world." Today was Joaquin's friend's birthday party. To make the most of it, he found a farmhouse resort in the suburbs. The place was nice and the activities were great, but it was far out of the way. 10 minutes had passed and there still wasn't a single ride available on the app. And I was starting to feel too weak to stand because of the fever. I crouched by the roadside debating whether to call an ambulance. Suddenly a car approached in the distance. "Jessica, what are you doing here?" I squinted, trying to recognize the driver. It seemed to be one of Joaquin's childhood friends. "Damien." He got out of the car and helped me up. "What happened? Where's Joaquin?" I didn't want to broadcast what Joaquin had done. Instead I just pleaded, "Can you take me to the hospital? I don't think I can make it on my own." I wasn't exaggerating. As soon as I got in the car, I closed my eyes in a dizzy haze. Faintly I heard Damien on the phone with Joaquin. He was saying, "Even if you had something going on, even if Elise was about to jump into the ocean, couldn't you have called one of us? Any one of us could have taken your wife to the hospital. If I hadn't left the party early, she would have collapsed on the side of the road and no one would have noticed. She's not a child." Of course she's not a child, but have you forgotten that this is the suburbs? How could she conjure up a car? "Joaquin, you really are a piece of crap. F***ku." Although Joaquin's actions didn't really affect me much anymore. Hearing someone stand up for me made me smile. Maybe it was the relaxation that came with the thought. But I fell asleep for the rest of the ride. When I woke up it was late at night. There were no messages or missed calls from Joaquin. Instead Damien had texted me. "It's Damien. I had to leave but I got you a nurse. Let me know when you wake up." I replied, "I'm awake. Thanks." After a moment I added, "I'll treat you to dinner sometime." I left the next morning after finishing my 4-drip. I took the day off from work and went straight to my friend's law firm. One of her subordinates met with me handing me the divorce papers. He said, "If you need to file a lawsuit, feel free to contact me." I didn't think it would be necessary, but I still nodded and thanked him. When I got home, Joaquin wasn't there. Judging by the state of the house, he hadn't come home all night. I didn't call him. I just pulled out my suitcase and started packing. There were fewer and fewer things of mine in the house. Only 3 pairs of shoes left in the shoe rack and only this season's clothes in the closet. The study was already empty. Last week I moved my computer and files to my new place. As for the other household items, instead of going through the hassle of moving them, their best destination was the trash. After 8 trips back and forth, I threw everything out. Now I was just sitting in the living room with my suitcase, waiting for Joaquin. He got home around 6. When he saw the suitcase, he froze. "Are you going on a business trip?" "No, I'm moving out." "What do you mean?" "I took out the divorce papers. Let's get a divorce." Joaquin paused for a few seconds, then irritably pushed me aside. "Stop this nonsense. I haven't slept all night. I'm exhausted." I tried to keep my tone calm. "I'm not joking. Look it over. And if there's anything you're not satisfied with, we can discuss it." "You're serious?" "Yes." Joaquin let out a cold laugh. "Jessica, are you threatening me? A mature adult shouldn't act like this. Divorce, running away, you're not a child anymore." I'd heard similar things too many times. At first I'd felt guilty, then angry, and now nothing. I insisted, holding out the divorce papers to him. "Just look at them. If there's nothing wrong, sign at the bottom." "Jessica, enough," Joaquin growled. He said, "If you keep this up, I'll take it seriously." I met his gaze in silence. Finally he looked away, glaring. He snatched the papers from me, didn't even read them, and flipped to the last page to sign his name. He told me to get out, cursing under his breath. But I still reminded him, "See you at the Civil Affairs Bureau at 8 tomorrow morning." I met Joaquin through a matchmaking date. At that time I had just turned 20 and hadn't yet graduated from university. I went for fun. When I saw Joaquin, I was amazed by how handsome he was. I couldn't help but exclaim, "Is the quality of the matchmaking market this high now?" Joaquin chuckled. We both understood that there was no romantic interest. So, after exchanging a few polite words and phone numbers, we went our separate ways. It was 3 months later when I called Joaquin, because he was a psychologist. "Dr. So I wanted to ask, if I hear my toothbrush talking to me, what do you think that means?" Joaquin said, "It means you need to come see me that day." I underwent many tests and evaluations, and Joaquin guided me through it all. Later he told me, "You're sick, and you need medication." "But I don't feel sick," Joaquin chuckled softly. "Once you start the meds you'll feel better." That was a time when I relied heavily on Joaquin. He was patient, always smiling gently, and he reassured me, "Don't worry. It's just a small problem. I can cure it." It took him a year to cure me, and it took me 6 months to win him over. Then we dated, got married, and have now been together for 6 years. We didn't even reach the 7-year itch before everything fell apart. But fortunately, I've come to terms with it. I took a picture of the divorce agreement and posted it on social media. The first to react was my mom. Calls came flooding in, messages one after another. I glanced at them. Words like shameless and disgraceful filled the screen. To avoid giving myself a heart attack, I blocked her. Peace and quiet returned. The next second Olivia called. She's my closest friend left. And the first to know about my divorce. She said. I know you really want to get divorced, but isn't it a bit early to celebrate? I smiled. I'm not celebrating. I posted it for Joaquin to see. What do you mean? He probably thinks I'm bluffing. If I don't push him, he won't show up at the civil office tomorrow. Joaquin is 6 years older than me. My mom used to say that a 6-year age gap between men and women was unlucky, that our zodiac signs clashed and it was bad luck. But Joaquin's qualifications were too good, completely shattering that superstition and making my mom think I must have accumulated good karma in my previous life. Because of the 6-year difference, Joaquin always treated me like a child. When he was kind to me, it was like caring for a child. When he wasn't, it was like scolding a child. Yet the one thing he always said was, "You're not a child anymore." My social media post worked. The next morning when I arrived at the civil office, Joaquin was already standing there. But he wasn't alone. Elise was with him. She looked at me with an exasperated expression. When Joaquin told me you two were getting a divorce, I was shocked. Jessie, you can't be so impulsive. If this is about what happened the other night, I apologize. Okay, how ridiculous. She used a tone fit for comforting a child, but the challenge in her eyes was undeniable. I smiled slightly. Go ahead then. What, apologize? Didn't you say you were going to apologize? Elise was taken aback. But she quickly regained her composure. She grabbed Joaquin's wrist. It seems Jessie is really angry. Joaquin, please say something for me. Joaquin's face was cold. Is she a child who needs to be coddled? Joaquin, don't be like that. Didn't you promise to talk to Jessie properly? Jessie, I interrupted her. Miss Lynn, I'm curious. You always call me Jessie. Are we that close? Elisa's face went pale. Joaquin's low voice reprimanded me. Jessica, where are your manners? I was getting annoyed. If I'm not mistaken, we're here to finalize the paperwork, right? So Joaquin, are you stalling? Joaquin's expression darkened. Stubborn as always. We walked into the civil office one after the other. After completing the divorce registration, the clerk reminded us to come back in a month to collect the certificate. As we left the civil office, Joaquin asked, when will you come get your things? I looked at him in surprise. Haven't you noticed? Noticed what? There's nothing of mine left in that house anymore. It's actually understandable that Joaquin didn't notice. In the 2nd year of our marriage, he suggested we sleep in separate rooms. He said, even as a couple, we need our own space. That's the only way a relationship can last. At the time, I really trusted him. Even though I wanted to share a bed with him, I agreed. From that point on, even when we had sex once a week, he would get up and leave afterward. A few times I held on to him and playfully asked if he could stay with me. He always looked at me like I was a naughty child. Jessica, we talked about this. We need to stick to our word. Later, one of his friends came over to our house. He accidentally discovered that Joaquin slept in the guest room. He teased Joaquin, asking if I had kicked him out. Joaquin said, I suggested sleeping in separate rooms. Why? She's too clingy. It's a bit annoying. I wasn't surprised that my mom would show up at my door. I had given her the address of the new house. It wasn't out of deep mother-daughter affection, but because I knew her well. If she couldn't find where I lived, she would make a scene at my workplace. If she didn't find me at work, she'd go looking for Joaquin. And Joaquin was the last person I wanted her to bother. During the time I was sick, Joaquin had analyzed my mom, breaking down her behavior and the real motivations behind it. To Joaquin, my mom was transparent. All her little tricks Joaquin could see through instantly. And after he saw through her, the way he would give me that half smile made me uncomfortable. Joaquin wants to divorce you. What did you do to make him mad? Why can't you be more responsible and you still have the nerve to post on social media? Aren't you ashamed? I told you a long time ago, have a child already. You're almost 30 and still don't have one. Why are you so useless? Why is my life so hard? Everywhere I go people say you're sick and can't have kids. Can't you fight for a little dignity? Now I can't eat, can't sleep, I don't even feel like playing cards anymore. I don't care, you need to go talk to Joaquin properly. If you dare divorce him, I won't recognize you as my daughter. I've heard this same script countless times. It no longer stirs any negative emotion in me. But I still couldn't help asking, don't you care why we're getting divorced? Why? What do you mean why you can't even keep your own man, and you still dare ask why? Jessica, I'm telling you, if you divorce, don't call me mom again. I replied smoothly, all right, auntie. My mom stood frozen for a few seconds. Then screamed, Jessica, she acted as if I had triggered a heart attack. You just can't stand to see me happy, can you? You're trying to kill me, aren't you? What did I ever do to you? I raised you with all my sweat and tears, and this is how you repay me. You're trying to drive me to my death. I looked at this hysterical, frenzied woman in front of me. The truth is, she never had a complete sense of right and wrong. She doesn't know what's appropriate and what's not. Now she's acting like a martyr, as if divorce is some kind of crime against heaven. Yet she was the same person who, when my boss tried to exploit me, demanded 50,000 yuan. That was a summer job she found for me. A real estate development company run by one of my dad's high school classmates. She had me go there to learn finance. I went. But that man, who I should have been able to call uncle, trapped me in his car one night after he got drunk. He said if I was willing to go to a hotel with him right then, he'd give me 5,000 a month. I was terrified. Shaking, I told my mom about it. She was silent for a long time. 5,000 is too little. Tell him 50,000. And if he agrees, you go. At that moment I was numb. Numbly. I quit the job, and numbly I returned to school. But she didn't let me go. She forced me to return to that company, saying if I didn't properly wrap things up. How could she ever face that man again, the same man who had tried to exploit me? It was during that time, due to severe depression, that I became Joaquin's patient. I grabbed a kitchen knife and tossed it in front of my mom. She flinched and instantly went silent. What are you doing? I said. Whatever you want. Kill yourself or cut me. As long as you're happy, but I'm definitely getting a divorce. Dead silence. My mom looked at me with a trace of fear in her eyes. Oh, waving a knife around is too dramatic. I dragged her to the window. How about we jump together? You don't want to live anymore anyway. I'll give you your wish. My mom fled in panic. At the door she snarled. If you want to die, do it yourself. Don't drag me into it. Finally. Peace. I lay down on the floor, my mind blank, and I actually fell asleep like that. I was woken up by a call from Joaquin. He asked me, what about all those bags and jewelry in your cabinet? It took me a while to realize what he was talking about. They were all gifts from you. Now I'm returning them to their rightful owner. Joaquin's voice turned cold. I never take back what I've given. Then just throw them away. I hung up after that. I thought about blocking Joaquin. But then I remembered we'd still need to contact each other when picking up the divorce certificate, so I gave up. I figured with Joaquin's personality, once he hits a wall with me, he won't initiate contact again. But to my surprise, 4 days later he called me again. At that moment, I was fulfilling my promise to treat Damien to dinner. Damien seemed like a cold person at first, but after getting to know him, I realized he was quite gentle. His gentleness was different from Joaquin's. Joaquin's tenderness was all on the surface. His heart was cold. Damien, on the other hand, had a depth that came from years of experience. I thanked him. He asked how I was recovering. Then we talked about work. When he heard I was now working at a tax firm, he seemed surprised. I smiled and said, 2 years ago I passed the CPA exam and changed jobs. Damien nodded. Impressive, he added. Joaquin must have been blind. I lowered my gaze. He probably still doesn't know I switched jobs. To Joaquin, I was always useless. Just like when I first told him I wanted to get my CPA license. His response was, don't waste your time on things beyond your abilities. Damien wasn't one to gossip. So the conversation moved on quickly. We chatted a bit more and finished dinner. As we were leaving the restaurant, Joaquin called. He asked, "Where's the body wash at home?" I stayed silent. Suddenly I heard Elisa's voice in the background. "Forget it, why are you really calling Jessica? What if she misunderstands? I'll just skip the shower." I chuckled. "There's body wash on the bottom shelf of the storage cabinet, and the bathrobe is on the top. Have fun, wait." Joaquin's voice sounded urgent. "Don't get the wrong idea. Elise and I were nearby, and the waiter accidentally spilled soup on her. You." I wanted to say, "You don't need to explain to me." But I missed a step and luckily Damien caught me. He said, "Be careful." Joaquin went silent. A few seconds later he growled, "Who are you with?" I raised my eyebrows, bored. "We're divorced. Weddings, funerals, whatever. None of it concerns us anymore." Damien said, "If you need, I can explain to Joaquin." I looked at him. "You don't believe I'm serious about the divorce either?" Damien looked at me for a long time. Finally he said, "I believe you." I smiled slightly. "Thank you. I thought I had made things clear enough." But Joaquin began bombarding me with calls. He even found where I lived. When Damien dropped me off at the gate of my complex, Joaquin jumped out of his car, fist raised, aiming straight for Damien's face. "I treated you like a brother, and you're seducing my wife." Damien took the punch head on. Joaquin wanted to continue, but Damien quickly restrained him. "That's enough." I rushed over and pushed Joaquin away. "What's wrong with you?" Joaquin looked at me in disbelief. "You're defending him." I gritted my teeth. "You're crazy." Elise arrived late, grabbing Joaquin's hand and giving me a disapproving look. "Jessica, you're being reckless. Even if you're upset, you shouldn't ruin Joaquin and Damien's brotherhood." Damien chuckled coldly. "Brotherhood, Elise? Are we even close?" Elisa's face turned pale. Damien, I know you don't like me. If you know I don't like you, then stop talking." "That's enough." Joaquin instinctively shielded Elise. He stepped forward, standing in front of her and glaring at Damien coldly. "When did this start between you two?" I let out a frustrated breath. "Joaquin, just because you're dirty doesn't mean everything you see is filthy." Elise interjected, "But you got out of Damien's front passenger seat. Isn't the front seat reserved for girlfriends?" I tilted my head and looked at her. "So you knew?" Elise looked pitiful. I only get car sick. Can you believe this? The old saying holds true. What's good for the goose is not good for the gander." Everyone could see she was being unreasonable and illogical, except for Joaquin, who was completely blind. I looked at Joaquin, exhausted. "What do you want? Why can't you just leave me alone? Do I deserve to be tormented by you?" Joaquin looked confused. "Tormented? You think I'm tormenting you?" I stared blankly at him. "How did you know I lived here? Did you ask my mom? You know her better than I do. You know that if you reach out to her, she'll think we still have a chance. She'll keep bothering me over and over again. But you don't care because how I handle my mom is my problem, not yours." These were Joaquin's exact words to me. "That's your mother. You need to learn how to handle your relationship with her on your own instead of always coming to me. Otherwise, what was the point of all the therapy I gave you?" "But what about her?" I pointed at Elise. "You help her with everything. Her relationships with friends, her family, all of it. You've guided her every step of the way." "Why? Because to you, Joaquin, Elise is worth being cherished by the world, while I, Jessica, am meant to bear everything alone." "Well, I've done it, Joaquin. You've taught me how to face the world by myself, so I don't need you anymore because of Joaquin and Elise." Damien was dragged into this mess and ended up at my place. But he didn't come inside. At the door he said to me, "Get some rest. Good night." I felt a bit guilty towards him. But I was too tired, emotionally and physically, too drained to even speak. In the end, I just nodded, watching him leave. Joaquin wanted to talk. I agreed. We met again at his office. It was my request. I hoped that speaking in his Professional space might help keep things rational. Joaquin still had that superior air about him. He said, "This time I was wrong. I shouldn't have left you to go help Elise. But her situation was urgent. I was afraid she might do something drastic. Her life was at stake. She's my patient and you should understand that. But I promise you I'll handle my relationship with her better." This was so typical of him. A slap followed by a piece of candy. I thought for a moment. About 6 months ago, Elise was in a car accident. She called you after a long night shift. And despite your exhaustion, you rushed to her. Later you explained that Elise had no one else to turn to. So you had to help. Joaquin frowned. "What are you trying to say?" I'm asking. "If I had been the one in a car accident, would you have come?" "Of course." Joaquin paused. He must have remembered what happened a month ago. The coolant hose on his car broke while I was driving it, and the engine blew up on the highway. Since my car was in for service, I was using his, so I naturally thought to call him for advice. He said, "If you're attacked, call the police. If you're sick, call an ambulance. If your car breaks down, call a mechanic." Jessica, this is basic common sense. Joaquin took off his glasses, rubbing his forehead in frustration. "Jessica, be reasonable. I only said that because we had argued the night before." I nodded. "Yes, we argued. So as long as I don't apologize or admit fault, you'll punish me in every way possible. If you're wrong, shouldn't you admit it?" I stood up abruptly. "The biggest mistake I ever made was marrying you." Joaquin grabbed my arm. "What do you want from me?" I looked at him coldly. "I want you not to back out when the month is up." The boldest thing I've ever done in my life was pursuing Joaquin. He helped me when I was at my most vulnerable. For a time I truly believed I couldn't live without him. That was the first time I understood what it meant to lose my appetite, to feel restless and anxious. The days when I couldn't see Joaquin, I visibly deteriorated. I didn't understand what was wrong with me. All I knew was that I wanted to be with him. Back then I was hopelessly in love. I clung to him, I was jealous. I was suspicious. Those were all things Joaquin didn't like. So bit by bit, he broke me down and rebuilt me. The days without Joaquin passed quickly. I went on 2 business trips. When I returned, the security guard told me my mom had come by 3 times, but they had stopped her at the gate. Elise somehow got my number and sent me a message blaming me. "Because of you, Joaquin and Damien have completely fallen out. Are you happy now?" I had no interest in responding to someone so clueless, but I still called Damien. "If you need me to, I can explain things to Joaquin." Damien replied with a question instead. "Do you need to?" "No, I don't." "Neither do I." I fell silent. Damien spoke again. "You're back from your trip. How did you know?" "I went to your office looking for you." "Was there something you needed?" "The finance manager at one of our subsidiary companies quit unexpectedly, and we haven't found a replacement yet. I was wondering if you'd be interested in handling the accounts temporarily." I said, "I'm pretty expensive." Damien chuckled. "I think I can afford it." I smiled back. "All right. I'll come by tomorrow to discuss the details." Great. After hanging up, I thought I must have been imagining things. Talking with Damien was always pleasant. That subsidiary didn't have much business, so outsourcing the accounting work made sense. We negotiated a price and then we signed the contract. Damien glanced at his watch. "I've got another meeting coming up, so I won't keep you." I let out a breath of relief. I guess I really was imagining things. "All right, get back to work." Joaquin found me again on the 12th day. He looked a bit disheveled. "You changed jobs and you didn't even tell me." I frowned. "What do you want?" Joaquin looked at me. "Are you really going to go through with this divorce?" "Why wouldn't I?" Why? Olivia always said that in my relationship with Joaquin, even though he was 6 years older, it was me who spoiled him. Whatever Joaquin wanted, I gave him. Whatever he asked for, I delivered. So he became reckless and lost the ability to reflect on his actions. For the last time, let's talk, I said. This time initiating the conversation. I told Joaquin, I told you before. When I was studying for the CPA exam, I told you, but you said I wouldn't pass. When I switched jobs, I told you, but you didn't believe me and thought I was dreaming. I didn't hide it from you when I bought a house either. I've been renovating it since last year. I've been moving things in for the past 2 months. All right under your nose. Why don't you ask yourself why you never noticed or heard any of it? Joaquin looked confused. But you weren't like this before. I laughed sarcastically. Thanks to you, my mother was never a good role model. She never taught me what was right or wrong. Nor did she ever instill in me any sense of propriety. I had to figure it all out on my own through life's hardships. So my sense of values formed late. When I first got together with Joaquin, he would always shake his head in disappointment, saying, "How can you not know this? What kind of family raised you?" If it were the me of today hearing that, I would have fired back without a second thought. But back then I truly felt ashamed and thought I was the one who was wrong. You taught me a lot of lessons and held me to saintly standards. I wasn't allowed to be weak, to have negative emotions, or to come to you for help. Every word out of my mouth had to be positive. I couldn't speak ill of others, complain about work, or lack common sense. I wasn't allowed to enjoy life's comforts. You constantly criticized me inch by inch, tearing down my self-esteem and throwing it on the floor. Joaquin, did you know I once thought about committing suicide because I was in so much pain? I even prayed at a temple. I don't remember what the prayer stick said or what the person interpreting it told me. I only remember crying and crying like I was shedding all the tears of my lifetime. Joaquin turned pale, his lips trembling. You're my wife. I just wanted you to become better. Joaquin, you're a psychologist. Why don't you use your professional knowledge to reflect on whether what you did to me was a form of psychological control? I raised my hand to stop him. Think about it. Just think about it. Joaquin had shattered my self-esteem, piece by piece. But I was the one who picked it all up bit by bit. Then I stitched it back together, becoming who I am today. On the 18th day, Joaquin appeared outside my apartment. He called me. I was wrong. I'll change. Can you forgive me, please? I won't contact Elise anymore. And I won't do anything you don't like. What do I need to do for you to forgive me? Then I'll give you my life. Is that enough? He brought a box full of mangoes. He began swallowing them down one by one in a messy, desperate way. His lips and cheeks started swelling, his arms visibly breaking out in rashes. But he didn't stop. 1, 2, 3. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was struggling to breathe. I didn't show up until after they had loaded him into the ambulance. The hopeful light in his eyes slowly faded away. He closed his eyes and passed out. The first person to confront me about it was Elise. Jealousy was barely hidden in her eyes. Why, he clearly still loves me. His actions were proof of his love for me. You were going to divorce him anyway, Jessica. What did you do? I looked at Elise. I've always disliked you, but I never stopped you from being around Joaquin. Do you know why? I answered my own question. Because your presence saved me. It was because of Elise. Because of the way Joaquin looked at her with such longing. I suddenly realized that Joaquin was just an ordinary man. He wasn't the god I had placed on a pedestal. In fact, he was a bit dirty. The second person to find me was my mother. She didn't understand. Joaquin went to such extremes. What more do you want? You've been dragging this out long enough. He's given you a way out. And you still won't take it. I didn't understand either. Joaquin has always wanted me to cut ties with you and stop supporting you. You still want me to stay with him? My mother's face changed. And she ran off. The third person to find me was Damien. I thought he came for Joaquin, too. But instead he asked, Another business trip, we rushed off to the subsidiary that night. Did a handover with the accountant who was about to leave the country and went over the accounts. Due to time constraints, we had to stay there overnight. Damien, with a mysterious grin, said he was taking me out for fun. After winding through narrow streets, we arrived in front of an old, traditional-looking building complex. I thought it was some kind of historical tourist site. But Damien told me it was a street of quiet bars. Here does it get any business? Damien sighed. If only I had heard that question earlier, I wouldn't have invested. He admitted regretfully that he had been led astray by some friends and made a poor business decision. He hadn't earned a dime but had perfected his cocktail-making skills. I sat at the bar, watching his smooth movements as he prepared drinks. The only two customers in the bar leaned over, asking for drinks as well. Damien smiled and pushed a glass toward me. Sorry. This one's reserved. That night Damien became my personal bartender. I drank a lot, enough to feel tipsy but not drunk. The music in the bar was just right. The temperature was perfect, and even the breeze blowing through the half-open window was just right. I felt wonderfully light and carefree. Damien asked, "Are you happy?" I nodded. Very happy. Joaquin said that as long as I visited him in the hospital once, he wouldn't back out of the divorce. So I went. When he saw me, he smiled, but it was a sad smile. "So all this time you didn't block me. You agreed to meet me and you kept talking to me, just because you were afraid I'd back out of the divorce, right?" I nodded. He asked again, "Do you really hate me?" I answered honestly. I did. There was a time when I hated Joaquin so much. I hated meeting him. I hated that I loved him. But over time, as I passed my CPA exams and changed jobs, I gradually let go. I told Joaquin, I know myself. If I had to do it all over again, I'd still make the same choices. The 20-year-old Jessica needed someone like you. If it hadn't been you, it would have been someone else. Would I have been any better off with someone else? Probably not. I was a mess back then because I relied too much on others. But in the end you pushed me away. The process was painful, but the result was what I needed. Joaquin, I don't hate you anymore. It's not because you don't deserve to be hated, but because I don't want to stay stuck in the past. But at the same time, I don't forgive you. Now all I want is to move on. Joaquin kept his word. He didn't back out. We smoothly finalized our divorce. He asked me, "Can we still be friends?" I couldn't help but laugh. "You're a psychologist. What do you think?" I always remember something Joaquin once said, "The past cannot be changed. But the future holds infinite possibilities. People need to grow. It's okay to stumble. It's okay to get bruised. Just don't look back. Keep moving forward." After the divorce, I decisively blocked and deleted Joaquin. The only person connected to him that I kept in my life was Damien. 4 months after the divorce, Damien told me that Joaquin had been reported. The accusation was for having inappropriate relations with a patient. The person who reported him was Elise. Since the accusations were unfounded, Joaquin wasn't affected much. But Elise didn't stop there. She upped the ante, claiming that Joaquin had seduced her during her treatment. There were text messages between them, photos of them embracing, and a video of them kissing during a couple's discount event at a store. Damien didn't expect the news to have such detailed content. He fumbled to turn off his phone, but I said calmly, "I already knew." He went quiet. I gave a bitter smile. "You're probably wondering why, if I knew everything, I didn't leave him immediately." "I didn't," I interrupted him. "At the time I was breaking free from the chains. I wanted to escape, but I first had to unlock the chains binding my limbs. But I was too weak. I couldn't find the key. So I had to break my own limbs." The sudden quiet made things awkward. Just as I was about to say something to break the silence, Damien patted my shoulder. "You're stronger than you think." Chapter 18. I worked for Damien for a year until he found a suitable financial manager. During that year we went to the subsidiary every month. Each time he would make me a cocktail. He paid me generously. To return the favor, I treated him to many meals. And just like that we became friends. Olivia asked if he was interested in pursuing me. I shook my head. I don't think so. Do you like him? I was a bit confused. I haven't thought about it. Probably not. Olivia wagged her finger. Don't make assumptions about your own feelings because of Elisa's reports. Joaquin was fired. His record was tarnished, making it hard for him to find another good job. Even at that point he refused to be with Elise. Defeated, Elise finally gave up. I heard that Joaquin tried to start a business, but it didn't go well. My best friend asked if I was happy. I nodded. Yes, I am. I still sent my mom her monthly support, though I didn't see her much. She called me petty and said I held grudges. I listened and let it go. I would still take care of her in her old age. But I had taken back all the feelings I once had for her, love or hate. This state of detachment brought me peace. My birthday was at the end of the year. With so few friends and being at this age, I had no expectations for birthdays anymore. But Damien invited me out for dinner. He celebrated my birthday. On the table were my favorite dishes and a cake I liked. He gave me 2 gifts. One to wish me a happy birthday. The other asking me to be his girlfriend. I promised to be happy and I promised to be his girlfriend. Olivia was shocked. That's it, no chase, nothing dramatic, I smiled. I like being with him. Adult love comes with its own understanding, no need for grand gestures or vows. If it feels right, that's all that matters. Still, I couldn't help but ask Damien, when did you start liking me? I wasn't deluded enough to think he had been secretly in love with me for years. But I always felt like he had started caring for me a long time ago. Damien thought for a moment. He said, at first I didn't have much of an impression of you. I just thought of you as Joaquin's young wife, small in size, young in age, and very quiet, but obedient. Until one day I went with my mom to the temple. Damien wasn't too keen on such activities. While his mom listened to the scriptures, he wandered around bored. And that's when he saw Jessica, crying her heart out. Damien's first instinct was to avoid the situation. No one likes their vulnerability seen by someone they know. But he couldn't leave. Jessica was crying too hard, sobbing and curling into herself, as if she were being stripped of her very soul. Damien took a picture, intending to send it to Joaquin, thinking he should handle it. But in the end he didn't send it. That was Joaquin's wife. If she could find comfort in him, would she be at the temple crying? Damien thought. Never mind, it's not my place. But in the end he acted anyway. He bought a pack of tissues and handed them to Jessica. But he didn't have the words. So all he managed to say was, "Don't cry." Jessica didn't remember who gave her the tissues. But Damien remembered the despair in her eyes. At first Damien didn't intend to do anything more. He was against marriage. He didn't want to get married, didn't want a relationship. It was all too much trouble. And besides, she was his friend's wife. But every time they were at a gathering, he would keep an eye on her, to see if she was still as sad. And he wondered, could he do something to make her a little less sad? So at KTV, he would casually direct the server to place the fruit platter near her. At the dining table, when her favorite dish was about to be taken away, he'd stop the lazy Susan. But these opportunities were few and far between. Damien thought, it's fine. At least when I'm around, I'll try to make her a bit happier. None of this meant anything. He also fed the stray cats outside his building. There was no purpose. Just small kind acts. Until they started talking about divorce. When Joaquin misunderstood them, Damien didn't bother explaining. First, because in recent years, he had grown more and more disillusioned with Joaquin's behavior. Second, he wanted to take a stand. This girl deserved support and he was on her side. He never imagined he'd end up with Jessica. After all, he was against marriage. Until one day a friend teased him, saying, "Are you playing a new kind of secret crush?" Was he secretly in love with Jessica? He was. Damien took 2 days to come to terms with it. And then he gasped, "I kind of want to get married now." What's going on? Damien and Jessica got married in the 2nd year of their relationship. Joaquin showed up too. Damien stopped him at the door. "Let's not do this. It's a big day. Don't upset her." Joaquin cursed Damien, calling him a hypocrite, accusing him of plotting this for a long time, saying they had been involved all along. Damien sighed. "If I wasn't worried about wrinkling my suit, I'd punch you right now." But halfway to the ceremony, Damien turned back and told Joaquin, "We really weren't involved. Don't insult her," making it seem like she had cheated on him. That wouldn't do. Jessica was innocent. Jessica had been the one mistreated. After their wedding, Damien and Jessica settled into a peaceful life together. Damien didn't want children. After his stance on marriage, he realized he also wanted to remain child-free. His mother said he was always making impulsive decisions, but she didn't push him. After all, the fact that he got married at all was a blessing. His mother thought, well, his wife is 6 years younger than him, so maybe she'll outlive him. But in truth, Damien was nervous. He didn't want to hide anything from Jessica, but he was afraid she might not accept it. When he finally told her, Jessica simply said, "Oh good. I don't want kids either." Jessica had been wrestling with how to tell Damien. It felt wrong to marry someone without wanting to have children, but she truly didn't have the confidence to be a good mother. Her early life had been so chaotic. Just healing herself was already a miracle. The responsibility of raising a life felt too heavy. If she couldn't give the right answer, she'd rather not try. Thankfully, they were on the same page. The only person who had objections was Olivia. "You trust him? He was against marriage. Remember, what if he changes his mind and wants kids? Men can have children whenever they want." Jessica remained calm. "You're missing the point. This is about me not wanting children, and it just so happens that he doesn't either. So, we agree, and that's why we got married. Whether he wants kids or not is his will. Not wanting them is my stance. If we agree, we stay together. If we don't, we part ways. It's that simple." "But, doesn't it bother you?" Jessica looked up from her reports. "Are you saying that just because I'm afraid of being hurt or unhappy, I should never start anything? I can't tiptoe through life forever hearing that." Damien was thrilled. That girl who had once sobbed so desperately, that girl who had been so heartbroken, seemed to have grown up. No, she had always been growing. No one could ever bring her down.